Well, good evening to you all, including obviously two members of the public, and thank you for arriving just on time, Councillor Amasraj. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Western Area Planning Committee. I am Councillor Phil Barnett, Chairman of the committee. The other members of the committee members are present tonight: Councillor Anthony Amasraj, Councillor Tony Vickers, Councillor Clive Hooker, who's the Vice Chairman, and Councillor Adrian Abbs, Councillor Paul Dick and Councillor Denise Gaines. The following officers are attending to advise and support the meeting. To my right, Deborah Instron, the Team Manager of Development Management. Harriet Allen is the Case Officer, sat to my right. Good evening to you, Harriet. I'm not certain whether it's your first meeting, is it? You have been before. Okay, I might have missed you. I overlooked you. Sorry about that, Harriet. Lydia Theos is the paralegal to my left. And Jodie Wilson, Environmental Health Officer. And you were hoping? She's by Zoom. She is on Zoom. Can you hear us, Jodie?
I can.
Okay. Well, good evening to you via Zoom, and we're not sitting next door to one another tonight. Also to my left is Thomas Radburn, the clerk, right to far left, and Ben Ryan is the Zoom host to my left at the rear. Before we start this evening's meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that we are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber may not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour to always be respectful of other views. If we hear the evacuation alarm this evening, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via the safe emergency exit routes, which are marked above the doors, and follow any instructions given by the officers. The assembly point is in the car park in the Dolphin pub, but if a lockdown alarm sounds, we will remain seated and await further instruction from officers. We will then adjourn the meeting until such a time as it is safe to proceed. Do members have any questions about the way in which the meeting will be conducted before I proceed? I presume not. I'm okay. Right, I will continue on. Firstly, I'm going to ask the clerk for apologies, and I believe we've actually got two formal apologies tonight. Is that correct, Thomas?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have apologies received from Councillor Howard Wollaston and Nigel Foot.
Thank you very much. Going around the table, do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Dick?
None, thank you.
Councillor Gaines?
None, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Amasraj?
Yes, Chairman, I'm the ward councillor for this application, and also have been lobbied or have interacted with the residents of the Benedict Court for this application, but I will go into the debates and discussion without any
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Vickers?
This is in Newbury town area, but I don't recall us debating it. We probably put it through on the nod, but I don't recall it. Haven't been lobbied on it, but that's all.
Okay. Well, I'm also a member of Newbury Town Council, as you know. It was actually discussed, but there was not any dissent, really. Just a slight concern about the noise, but I think that's been addressed, and subsequently they're happy. Councillor Hooker?
Nothing for me, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Abbs?
And nothing for me.
And obviously, formally, nothing for myself. Moving on, and now we need to obviously address the minutes of the previous meeting, which was the meeting held on the 23rd of July, because if you remember correctly, the August meeting was cancelled. So any comments on the meeting of the 23rd of July? No comments? Anyone wish to propose?
Happy to propose that, Chair.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Dick. All those in favour that were present? Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. I'll sign in a minute. Right, now to the main item of the meeting, which is item 4, application 25/00-931/FUL Waitrose Oxford Road, Newbury, RG141NB. And information for obviously 2 members of the public sat in the public gallery. I'll briefly explain the procedure in case you're not totally conversant with the way that we operate. Officers will present the application to the committee, after which the following groups might wish to make representations for a maximum of 5 minutes. Firstly, the parish or the town council representatives, the objectors, supporters, applicant and agent, and then ward members. The committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification of the speakers. Members will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the officers in the application. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Harriet Allen to begin her presentation. So over to you, Harriet.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this application proposes a replacement plant for the Waitrose store on Oxford Road in Newbury. It's being presented today due to over 10 objections being received, and the officer recommendation was for approval. I'm first going to describe the proposal and then address the objections that have been received. So on the screen, this is the location plan indicated by the red line, which is within the boundary of the Waitrose store. It is relating to the service yard, which is this area here. And then a rectangular portion is the flat roof part of the building. You can see on the western boundary, the site closely borders a car park belonging to Benedict Court. This is the playing field, and then there's some dwellings on Old Bath Road of note down there. The existing plant consists of 2 dry air cooler units on the rooftop and a biomass boiler at ground level in the service yard. And here's a site photograph. You can see the biomass boiler with its chimney. The rooftop units can't be seen from this level, but from the corner flat of Benedict Court, there's likely visibility. The proposal is in blue, and it is to replace the 2 dry air cooler units on the roof with 2 other ones, which are similar in size. In the elevations, you can see that they are in a similar location and lower in height. The biomass boiler is proposed to be removed and replaced with 2 air source heat pumps enclosed within a chain link fence with acoustic panelling on the wall of the store here, which would absorb the sound and prevent reflections in the direction of Benedict Court, which is opposite this area. And behind this container would be a water source heat pump. As is demonstrated on these elevations, the overall change in scale is very similar. In fact, generally a reduction in height. So, and the general function and appearance of this area is not going to change significantly. So there has not been any concerns in relation to a harmful impact on the character and appearance of the area, which is nearby the conservation area. No impacts on flooding, drainage, biodiversity or highway safety, and no objections have been received regarding any of those matters. So in turning now to objections, 12 have been received overall, and the full letters and responses can be read online, but I will provide a small summary now. So there is existing noise disturbance for neighbouring residents from the A4 because of traffic. Daytime and nighttime deliveries to the store and engines left running can cause noise disturbances, and loading trolleys in the service yard. There's note of the nighttime deliveries permitted previously under another application, which has been considered to be disruptive. Double glazed windows at Benedict Court don't prevent the existing noise disturbance. There is concern there would be new noise impact on the neighbouring garden amenity in particular for Benedict Court because the biomass boiler was considered to be silent. There was confusion around the acoustic screening being on only one side of the air source heat pumps and not on the western side. There's also concerns that there may be additional water usage impact affecting local water pressure. There's concerns it may impact the sale of neighbouring dwellings. the noise, and there's also concern that the noise impact assessment that was submitted doesn't consider the demographic of the neighbouring residents adequately. And there's confusion around a lack of clarity on the individual fans and the noise they are generating, with some records indicating 80 decibels, but that is not in the conclusion of the report. And detailed product specification is provided only for the dry air cooler units and not the air source heat pumps. So regarding the noise from the service yard in general and the vehicles, the idling vehicles, it is acknowledged there has been disturbance and noise impact from this area. However, this application relates purely to the replacement plant, and it would see no change in the store's existing function, access and parking arrangements. So it's not been considered that these other matters relating to idle vehicles and deliveries is relevant to this application at hand. I do want to note that environmental health have separate powers to deal with noise complaints and can be sorted in that way outside of planning. In terms of water impact, the policy DM7 of the local plan review does say that development which would overload available facilities and create or exacerbate problems of flooding or pollution will not be permitted. And again, as this application relates only to a replacement plant in a very similar location and scale, there are no water resource concerns and none have been raised by the council's engineer. So it's not considered that any conditions or refusal would be warranted on that basis. So turning to the main consideration of concern, which is the noise impact, it is very clear in national and local planning policy that adverse impacts from noise arising from new development must be mitigated and not harm the health and quality of life of individuals. The nearest residential amenity, as can be seen on the location plan, is Benedict Court, which adjoins the store's boundary to the west and consists of 56 flats. The nearest habitable rooms would be around 40 metres from the heat pump area, and a small garden area approximately 30 metres. South of the playing field are properties on Old Bath Road, which are around 60 metres away from the heat pump area. And the noise impact assessment submitted with the application assesses the noise impact specifically on these properties. The Environmental Health Officer initially stated that the NIA, the noise impact assessment, just demonstrates that the new plant would not result in any adverse impact. The plans were amended over the course of the application due to some internal changes at the store that needed to be accommodated in the plant, so that the size of the air source heat pump slightly increased and a water source heat pump was added to the plans, and the NIA was updated to reflect these changes, and the Environmental Health Officer reconsulted. With regards to the amended NIA, objectors noted that the cumulative impact of traffic with the noise from the plant was not considered, and noted that the acoustic panels would only be on one side. And on that note, it is noted that these panels are in place to prevent reflections, not surround the entire heat pumps, but they're designed to prevent reflections, and that's why they're only on one side of the area. And the Environmental Health Officer, the same one that reviewed the original noise impact assessment, reviewed this amended one, and they commented that it demonstrates that the noise generated will not exceed existing background noise levels for neighbouring residents. They also deemed the NIA to accord with the relevant British standard methodology, so it has been considered that the assessment presents an acceptable evidence-based conclusion that can be relied upon. To mitigate the noise generated, the acoustic panels proposed must be implemented and retained, and overnight air source heat pump operation prohibited, and these requirements can be secured with conditions. And in terms of a cumulative impact, it is considered that this lies outside the scope of this application, which is only for a replacement plant. And in accordance with the National Planning Policy Framework, noise mitigation measures have been incorporated and evidence provided to demonstrate that the proposal would not result in significant adverse impacts on health and quality of life. So therefore, with those conditions, there is nothing to indicate that the planning permission should be refused. And your officer recommends that the proposal be delegated to the development manager for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Harriet. Just for information, members, as you can note by attendees, we've got nobody from highways, but in this case, it's probably not appropriate, and it would be perhaps counterproductive to ask Paul Goddard to attend tonight anyway. We've got nobody from Newbury Town Council, the local town council, so I'm going to immediately call upon Jane Kemp on behalf of the Residents Association. So you've got 5 minutes, Jane, to stand at the rostrum and make your case, and then there's a possibility that members might ask you some questions afterwards.
Okay, thank
So
you.
over to you when you're ready.
All right, thank you. I'll do my best in 5 minutes.
We will notify you after 4 minutes. That's okay.
As you know, we are a building of 55 flats, and we're all over 70 years of age. At the last planning, when during COVID, we all felt, I mean, we don't understand. I mean, these reports, we just don't understand them, but we've had a bit of one of our residents who's been a little bit techie has tried to explain the noise report to us, and we've kind of, wanted to ask questions. So the residents feel that they were misled at the last planning because they thought that the lorries coming in through the night were only going to be temporary, but they later learned that it was not temporary, and this has caused a huge problem because lorries idle at the end at 3 o'clock in the morning, then they drive past, and then they go into the yard, and the noise from the cages that load the vehicles is quite immense. Whilst we get on very well with Waitrose and we have no problem with them at all, we feel that we don't want to be misled this time because the impact of the last planning wasn't recognised until after the event. So we are worried that after this event that there will be extra noise and we will be impacted again. We are in a semi-commercial area, and we have noise all around us from the two companies at the end. We don't get too much problems with those, but from the A4, and the lorries constantly coming in from Waitrose. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, myself personally, I haven't been able to access my home because of blockage to that road, that access road that comes in. So there was a lorry parked at the end. There's a lorry coming out. I pull in thinking the lorry was parked there, and I get sandwiched between two lorries, and I have to go into the company at the end to wait for the traffic to clear. And then I mean, this is our home. Our home is slipping away. We are gradually becoming more commercial. It's affecting the sale of our flats. We are told that 20 DAX fans that have 80 decibels. I mean, is that per fan or is that in total? We don't know because we don't understand the report. Whilst we appreciate that you have lots of experts putting these reports together, they don't have to live here. Earlier this year, we had a donation to upgrade our garden, and our MP very kindly came and opened it for us. It's not a quiet time for us to sit in our garden anymore. And with 20 DAX fans that have a constant hum and 4 air source heat pumps, what is the impact going to be? We won't know until these fans are in, and we find out, like we did with the last planning. The freestanding acoustic screen we think is more beneficial for Waitrose to stop the sound going back into the building. When the report was done, it was on a very low wind day. There was no wind on that day, and some of the information in the report has been taken from the Old Bath Road, where the Old Bath Road is further away than Benedict Court. We are right. I'm sure people that have visited the site last week, which I wasn't able to attend, will appreciate how close we are. We accept that visually it will be an improvement with the chimney going and the other equipment, but we are very concerned. We are very vulnerable residents in Benedict Court. We don't understand these things, and we are worried. So, that's all I can say.
Okay, well, you've just come up to 4 minutes, so that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, right, well, if you just wait, then there might well be some questions. Right, Councillor Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Jane. Have you spoken to the two ladies who did attend site visits
Yes.
last Thursday?
Yes, I have.
Did that reassure you at all?
No, because I was told that at the time of the site visit that there was an incident with cages coming
Absolutely.
out, and the councillors and the people that attend the site couldn't hear themselves speak. Well, if you're asleep during the night, if you're awake in the daytime and you hear noise, it's not so much of an issue. But if you're asleep at night and you suddenly get that noise that wakes you up in the night, that is really upsetting for our residents. And the planning office wrote to 2 residents that were on the A4 side, whereas there's 13 residents at the back that will be affected.
Understood. Just one follow-up question. Do you now understand that because that moving of the cages is an operational matter not connected with the planning application, whilst it was very useful for those attending, including all of us that were there, to hear it, it's not something we can take into account tonight?
No, but I believe in the last planning, there were restrictions that lorries shouldn't be parked at the end of where they come into the entrance, and there should have been rubber matting or something down. So what we're saying is, what we're asking for is that we understand that, you know, the application will be approved, but we're asking for extra restrictions to be put in to try and mitigate some of these concerns.
Okay. All right. Further questions, members? Okay. No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to the agent. Tim Williams is, I presume that was you anyway, but as there's nobody else in the room. Okay, again, you've got 5 minutes and we'll notify you after 4 minutes.
Good evening, councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Tim Williams, and I'm here on behalf of Waitrose, who have asked me as their planning consultant to speak regarding the proposed enhancements to the Newbury store. Waitrose.
Can you sort of put the microphone up closer to you?
Okay,
we'll hear you a little bit more.
Okay, sorry. Waitrose is investing heavily in its store portfolio. The aim is to modernise stores, improve energy efficiency, create a more sustainable operation, while also enhancing the shopping experience for customers. These upgrades are aligned with the ambitious net zero targets set by John Lewis, which is committed to achieving net zero emissions in its direct operations by 2035. This is also in line with West Berkshire's own commitment following the declaration of climate emergency in 2019, which places a focus on reducing greenhouse gases and improving energy efficiency, which is exactly what this proposal is intended to deliver. The existing plant at Newbury is now reaching the end of its life and requires replacement. The roof-mounted dry air coolers and the biomass boiler with its chimney are outdated and increasingly inefficient. The replacement plant will bring several key benefits, including a reduction in overall energy use and increased efficiency. Carbon dioxide emissions and the release of airborne particulates associated with the biomass boiler will also be cut, and the need for regular fuel deliveries eliminated, which means fewer vehicles movements and less associated pollution. The removal of the tall biomass chimney will represent a visual improvement. The new dry air coolers are not only lower in height than the existing units by around 0.5 metre, but are set within a recessed plant zone, resulting in no harmful direct views from Benedict Court or elsewhere. The proposed heat pumps are more modest in scale compared to the 4-metre high biomass boiler. The air source heat pumps are slightly taller than the boundary fence, but less visually intrusive. The water source heat pump is lower still, meaning it will sit below the fence line. All plant is finished in grey to reduce visibility. Overall, the proposals are in keeping with the typical appearance of a large bottom food store and are not harmful to the character and appearance of the area. Acoustic shielding is being installed to absorb sound and prevent it being reflected. The noise impact assessment demonstrates that even in the worst case scenario, noise levels will be of low impact at all nearest receptors during day and nighttime periods. It is fully compliant with the relevant British and WHO standards. The Environmental Health Officer agrees with these findings and has concluded that noise will not exceed existing background noise levels. To further minimise nighttime disturbance, the air source heat pumps will be restricted in operation between 1 hour either side of store opening and closing. NPPF paragraph 85 requires that planning decisions create the conditions in which businesses can invest and adapt. These proposals represent a clear step forward in terms of sustainability and energy efficiency. It removes unnecessary emissions, improves the appearance of the site and surrounding area, and has been carefully designed to ensure there will be no significant adverse impact on the amenity of surrounding properties or residents. This financial investment will contribute towards the modernisation and continued presence of the store, thereby assisting with its future economic success and that of Newbury's wider economy. This is a carefully considered proposal that will help deliver on local and national sustainability commitments while modernising an important facility for Newbury residents. The application is supported by all statutory consultees, including Environmental Health, Highways and Newbury Town Council. Waitrose therefore respectfully requests that you grant planning permission in accordance with the recommendation for approval from your planning officers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Right, questions. Right, Councillor Abbs and then Councillor Dick.
Thank you very much. You mentioned about acoustic barriers and you mentioned reflected sound. I'm confused as to why you wouldn't want to shield for direct sound.
The reason for that barrier being is because I was trying to do you a favour. Yeah, because ultimately you've got a solid brick wall behind. What you can get is noise breakout if you allow that reflection to occur. So we put the barrier in, it's higher than the plant.
Was I not clear? I understand why you would put the reflection absorption in there. I don't understand why you wouldn't put acoustic barriers to stop the direct sound coming from it.
Absolutely. The reason is because background noise levels, it's not going to increase over and above that. It's still very low and low impact, so there is no requirement for it.
Okay, so when you say background sound levels, measured at what time of day?
I don't know the exact time of day, it's in the report, but it's in accordance with the standards. And it's always done when the weather conditions are appropriate. So lady here recorded that, it was done on a day when it wasn't windy. That is required by the methodology.
Is there any reason you didn't take the opportunity to put the rubber matting down that would have really helped residents in terms of the overnight? Because you're doing lots of other things, so why not that?
Absolutely. If we're talking about the delivery hours planning permission, yes. Yeah, absolutely. As we said, that's not about tonight, but you're quite right. There is with that planning permission. There is a condition, as I understand, that requires the delivery management plan, which has a number of different clauses within it to be abided by. So it is for the store to comply with that. If not, it is a matter for the council. It's my understanding from speaking, and I don't work at Waitrose, but I do, obviously I spoke to the store before. It's my understanding that they do take it into account of that, but that's just what I've been told.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. You drifted from one safe pillar to another. So we're investing a lot in this store, so Newbury can rest assured that they're going to have a Waitrose for the next 1,000 years. That's okay. That's good. You're upgrading the facilities for the customers. It's good. But your first pillar was all about climate change, climate challenge, and a significant contribution to the net zero target. Can you give me some numbers on that?
I don't have the numbers to hand.
So how do you know there is an improvement?
Because it's more energy efficient, and you're not burning and releasing through a chimney. So it's a different type of process to cool and heat the store. That's the reason. It's part of the investment they're doing across the portfolio. It's every little bit counts, and that's one part of it. Yeah, but the main point about the noise, which is the concern, I do understand that. There isn't a significantly adverse impact on that.
I didn't ask you that.
No, but I was just...
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hooker.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, for your presentation. You mentioned in that presentation that this upgrade will be an enhancement to your customers' experience. Can you explain to me how air source heat pumps on the roof of the building going to enhance your customer experience?
Yeah, well, the store overall is going through a refurb. As part of that, they're putting in new chiller units and things like that. So they need an uprated plant system to account for that, because the current stuff is outdated and very old, and all things have an end of life, and they're reaching end of life. So it's all plant is replaced periodically as and when. So it's part of that wider refurb.
Do you think they'll get an experience from that? Better
I think the
shopping
store-
experience.
Yeah, I think that the store is, I mean, I went in the store today. I mean, it's halfway through that internal refurb. It is going to be significantly better, and this is a key part of that.
You also said that the noise would be reduced during daylight periods. Are you saying that the noise won't be? Okay, just explain to me what happens in the night periods. You did say the sound would be reduced during daylight periods.
There's going to, the planning officer has recommended a planning condition for controlling the plant, if that's what you mean, either side of the store opening hours, so it won't run continuously through the night time, if that's
right. So that was my next question. Can you just explain to me then, for the residents' point of view, what they will be experiencing with regards to the operational hours? We appreciate they're going to be quieter.
Yeah.
Or we're told they're going to be quieter. Can you just tell me now the improvement, let's say, on the operation running time of these new fans for the benefit of the residents?
Yeah, so there will be the permitted trading hours in accordance with the planning permission is 7 to 10. So outside of that, an hour either side, they'll be allowed to use that plant item, but beyond that, they won't.
So you're saying from
it's not
11
24
o'clock
hours.
until 6, the
Yes.
fans will be off?
Yes.
All fans, the one on the floor, the air cooler, the water coolers, they'll all be off. There'll be no sound overnight.
No, there will be heating as and when required, but the cooling down system won't be.
I'm trying to, for this lady's benefit, so she can go away and feel that she's comfortable, that at least she's going to get some sleep.
Yeah.
What's going to be running during the night that's not running now, and what's the benefit of this system over the old one?
Well, the benefit is under the other planning permission, you haven't got those controls on that plant.
They were running 24 hours a day.
I think that they can do. Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
They were running.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
So from the chair, just following on from that question, does that affect in relationship to the hours of operation? But what about the staff working overnight, fill up shelves? Presumably you need power then.
Yeah, I mean that's an operational matter, and it's managed, and Waitrose is willing to accept that planning condition. So I mean, I'm not involved in the day-to-day operation of the store. I'm not based there.
That was my concern, Chairman. That was my concern, just going back, if I may, of the creep. That was the lady's concern, that we give planning permission and then there's this creep. Well, we need power and during the night, and therefore these things have got to run. But,
yeah, I mean, that's a planning condition, so it's entirely enforceable by the council. Waitrose certainly wouldn't do that. If they did, the environmental health officer would come round and could start action, like with all planning permissions, essentially. But that's not, ultimately, Waitrose don't want to upset their neighbours who are, they're responsible retailers. They don't want to upset their customers, and they do, in my experience, and I work and advise them on lots of stores across their portfolio. They do work very hard to work to keep within restrictions and keep neighbours happy.
Chairman, we might be able to discuss that with officers as to where we go with conditions. I think that we tie that up a bit tighter.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Amathraj and then Councillor Abbs.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to ask the question, follow up with what you asked.
Sorry. Can you list further questions? Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to follow up with a question from Councillor Hooker with the one you asked. So I will not repeat, but I just want to understand from the applicant for clarity purpose, hypothetically, at 22 hours in the evening, night, you would switch off the operations of the heat source power fans and subsequently. It's not operation. It's 11 o'clock. So after that, it would be switched off and completely silent. That's what we are
that
implying.
part would be yes.
Hey, right, Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, you mentioned there that Waitrose wants to be a good neighbour. So I assume you wouldn't mind us putting some conditions related to acoustic fencing all around the plant then?
Well, there isn't a requirement for it in terms of the noise.
No, but you said you want to be a good neighbour, so.
But, yeah, of course. But I'm talking about how they operate as a neighbour, how they comply with their planning conditions, how they operate the store in a professional and considered manner. That acoustic implementation is not required here. There's not going to be an increase in noise, as the EHO has agreed with our noise assessment.
I'll ask officers, but I'm not clear that there will be reduced noise because you don't know what time of day the report was done at. So we'll have to wait for officers to clarify that. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Okay, I think the questions have been exhausted and, oh, sorry, you got further.
Can you explain to me how the plant and the chillers work when all of your generations are off?
I'm not a plant engineer, so I don't know how they work, how that system works. But obviously, there's enough power in the system to run a modern food store ultimately. But I can't say any more than that, I'm afraid.
Okay, right. I think you can return to your backbenches, as they say. Okay, right, Councillor Amatharaj, as the ward member, you've got your slot now.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, a good evening for this opportunity to speak in front of you and present my observations as a ward member. I just want to add a bit of extra observations in addition to the Residents Association a member Jane presented here. This application we came to know about through the planning portal, and on July 1st we received comments or emails from the residents, and straight after that we got involved as board members and working with the case officer, thanks to Harriet for responding very quickly with the details of the acoustics levels and the reports. So the primary issues raised by the residents are around, as you've heard, acoustic levels, but that's the cumulative effect of the noise levels, not just from these heat pumps, but also you might have observed from the site visit last week, that is, it's all the traffic coming in with all the trolleys and all this. So it's a cumulative effect, but I also acknowledge that that's not part of this application. But you have to remember the concerns raised by the residents is just to address this cumulative effect. How do we do it? We have to discuss further, but I would request members to consider conditions to make sure that it's the cumulative effect of the sound levels and noise levels are taken into effect and impact on the residents. In terms of this net zero gain or environmentally friendly heat pumps, I acknowledge that's a commendable one, but there is not even enough evidence to say that the heat pumps, air source heat pumps or land-based heat pumps the noise would be less. There are evidences there in the public domain that the noise levels are more during the winter period or during the time when it requires more power to operate. So it's a questionable thing, but I go with the environment officer's assertion last week during our site visit, also in the report, that the noise levels would be comparatively or substantially less. So we need to go with what officers have concluded here. In terms of understanding these, the relationship of the Benedict Courts residents, the proximity, we were very clear from the site visit that that's going to be a real impact. So that has to be considered as well, because it's not just the noise levels across a spectrum of the circumference, but it's just that proximity of that certain flats facing the Waitrose have to be considered in particular. So in summary, I just don't want to keep on repeating the same thing, but what I wanted to request through the committee is, as members, if you could consider for the residents and understand if their concerns can be addressed through certain conditions, because there is, as Jane previously spoke, in 2021, I'm referring to the application section 73 to discharge, the condition was to increase, or the discharge was to increase the delivery times. But what we've known is the delivery times have been now are occurring now at 2 o'clock in the night. That's anecdotal evidence, or that evidence presented to me by the residents. So I'm not seeing it at 2 o'clock, but just want to present that is a situation we shouldn't be in for this application as well, where without proper conditions, then there is a risk of residents being impacted more what they are already facing. So that's where I want to conclude, and thank you. If any questions, please.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Any questions to the ward member? No? Okay, right. Okay. Right, now we move on to questions to officers, and what I would suggest is indicate whether it's specifically for Harriet or whether it's specifically for the environmental health officer, because obviously we want to make sure that she can hear the question clearly. So I think Councillor Dick was first, and then Councillor Vickers. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't see the person, but this is for our environmental colleague who's somewhere behind me or above me or a mixture of the two. So I hear more from the residents about what they're unhappy about. And unfortunately, quite a lot of it is to do with the previous application. And it sounds like, if what's being said is accurate, that there are conditions that are being flaunted. Well, frankly, perhaps the ward members who get together with the residents and help them address that to environmental health and enforcement and do something about it. That should be straightforward, shouldn't it? So I want to ask more about what we're talking about today. There's still, if we set aside, if you like, legacy issues for the moment, because that's what we should do, there's still doubt in my mind about the noise impact. I don't want to hear about there's noise from the A4. I know that. Surely there's some more mitigation that could be applied to this new plant to reduce further any impact on the residents to whom we owe a great debt. Simple question.
Were you able to hear that question clearly?
Yes, I could hear that question. Yeah, sorry, I don't think my video is working. Let me try again. Yes, you can see me. Hello. Yes, in terms of the other issues that are not directly related to this application, the delivery noise, I did speak to the two ladies that were present at the site meeting, and I have spoken with the store about that, and that will be dealt with separately by environmental health under our nuisance investigation powers. And then moving on to this application, sorry, could you just remind me exactly what your specific query was with this application? Sorry.
I think I did say it was a simple question. Perhaps it isn't.
I'm sure it is.
Okay, easy to solve. Environmental acoustic mitigation.
Yes.
Ignore the fact that there's more noise from over there. The specific noise from this new plant affecting some vulnerable residents. Surely there are some more steps that can be taken to reduce further the potential impact on residents.
Okay, so the noise assessment, it's all being completed correctly, robustly, and in accordance with the correct methodology. The conclusion based on worst case levels, so unlikely to be operating at those higher levels, but based on worst case is still that the noise levels generated by it are below the existing background noise levels. So it shouldn't be audible at local residents' properties. So there wouldn't be a value to providing additional mitigation above the mitigation that's being provided on the rear wall to prevent reflections, because otherwise what you would have is you would hear the sound twice. You hear the sound directly and reflected. So the reflective screening prevents you from hearing the sound twice, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, but you're still not really helping me here, because you used the word lightly 3 times and used the word rarely once. The simple question is, we can retreat into the rules and regulations and go on one set of figures, but you've heard a picture here of misery, really, of fingers being burnt. And I'm simply asking, because I think there's a feeling in this room that we'd like to see some movement. It might just be me, we'll find out in a minute. But surely there are some further steps that could be taken to lower whatever noise emits from the new plant. Simple. Yes or no?
I don't think there'd be anything to be gained by it. There is the existence of acoustic barriers. The difficulty can be with air source heat pumps is because you need the ventilation, the way they operate in terms of drawing in air and heating them. There has to be ventilation. So another noise assessment would be needed, because if the acoustic screening were added, then that might then mean that the plant has to work harder and creates more noise. So it's not a simple stick up an acoustic barrier.
I heard the word lightly and might again, Chairman, so I'm going to retreat.
Okay, what you're basically saying, you partially got an answer, but not correctly, appropriately, or not so thoroughly as what you expect.
I'll go with your last answer, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Vickers.
Yes. My question to you is, I don't know whether this comes within your expertise or within somebody else's who maybe isn't present to advise, but I'll try you anyway. There was a question put to the applicant about what if this new heating and cooling system, this new zero carbon type equipment was to be needed in the night. Would that draw, for example, for somebody having a shower, would that turn on the equipment and create the noise that we're all talking about and trying to eliminate?
But I mean, I don't know. As they've proposed, the equipment would be switched off, so therefore not operable for that purpose. That would be my understanding. That was the expectation of the planning condition recommended by us to the planning officer. Okay, I think that's the only question I need to ask you. The rest is for the planning officer, case officer.
Okay, Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thanks very much. I don't work in I work in absolutes really, and what we're talking about is what's the dB level. And I understand the dB level because my degree is in physics. So I can actually, if you tell me what the dB level reduction is, I'll be able to understand it, and I might be able to explain it to anybody else that needs it explaining to, but it's really quite a simple thing. We were assured on site that the sound would be lower than it currently is. This meeting has introduced doubt into the equation. How do we get to the certainty that at all times of day, with a dB number, decibel number, that we actually have something lower than what we currently have? Could you help me with that, please?
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the relevant section in the.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't actually read that part of the report because of the assurance received on site, so I didn't think it was going to be a question for tonight. But if you've got a place in the report that tells us the dB reduction, we can rest assured. If it's anything more than 3 dB, that's half the level it was before. So let's hope it's at least that.
Sorry, I'm struggling to find the relevant section.
Would it help if there are any other questions to give her a chance to explore the documentation?
Okay, yeah. Perhaps you can, while you're investigating that, Jodie, perhaps Councillor Amraj could ask his question.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, my questions to Mrs. Instant or the case officer Harriet. For the condition 4, noise impact mitigation, there are mitigation measures proposed for to meet the EEC standard, that regulation, but it is to safeguard the neighbouring amenity, accordance with the DM5 and DM30 policies. I've read through some of them, but what I'm trying to ask here is, would that mitigation measures apply only to these additional features, i.e. the plan, or overall we can put a condition to implement these mitigation measures to apply for the overall operations of the Waitrose store? including the trolleys and all those funds. Because what I want to allude to is Councillor Dick is correct, because we need to engage with the council team, environment officer, to deal with the problems, with the legacy problems. But I'm thinking there is an opportunity to address the grievances of the residents, to apply these mitigation measures as a holistic one to this plant, not just for this feature alone.
Do you want to answer that, Ari, or do you want to, Deborah, did you want to come?
I mean, my initial thought on that would be that it has to be relevant to the development proposed, and the development proposed is the replacement plant, so it wouldn't be in accordance with the planning practice guidance 6 tests to apply a condition to restrict operational noise not relevant to the plant. That's my initial thought, but I'll defer to Deborah if there's.
Thanks, Harriet. That's exactly what I was going to answer as well. Thanks, Harriet.
Okay. Your hand up, Councillor Vickers.
Yes. Question to Harriet. We heard the applicant say that the equipment would be turned off an hour either side of the operating hours, the consented operating hours, that is, not the ones that the residents would like, which they had before. So I take it that it's if they're not allowed to deliver after 11, that means that the equipment will be turned off at 10 in the evening, and in the morning, if you understand it, assuming it's, and I haven't got the consented operating hours in front of me, but if say it's 7 a.m. that they can start to operate, then it's 8 a.m. that the equipment comes on. And really, that's all I can ask that's relevant to the planning application tonight. So am I correct with that assumption? Okay.
You might think of the Sunday as well, 4 o'clock.
Well, whatever the operating hours are, it's 1 hour either side in addition to the no operating hours that we have the equipment off. Is that right?
Thanks, Councillor Vickers. The operating hours, condition 5 notes the operating hours to be between 7 and 10 o'clock. So it'd be an hour either side of those times, so 6 till 11.
Just a point on that, Chairman. I mean, Sundays is 4 o'clock. So why is it 11 o'clock on a Sunday? It would give more respite on a Sunday if they shut off at the operating hours. It's just.
Yeah, I think you have a point there, Councillor.
We can certainly amend that condition to incorporate Sunday opening hour times.
Could we not do it rather than operating time to opening times, which would actually reduce it an hour either side?
Well, that might be more appropriate, because of course bank holidays, they tend to open separately as well. So it's not only Sunday, it's a different time.
I mean, the question to officer, can we change a condition in that way to change it to opening hours, not operating hours?
I think yes, we could change it. Whether or not the applicants would appeal that, I'm not sure, because it would obviously depend on their operational needs of when they need the air source. But there's no reason why we couldn't extend it. I mean, Waitrose operating hours on a normal day, is it 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock? So yeah, so it's thereabouts, isn't it? So we can we can change it. So the operating hours at the moment, we could specify that it's store opening hours rather than operating hours on the condition.
Sorry, Chair, it does say trading hours. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes, it does say trade.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Gaines.
Okay, sorry, is that on continuation? I was going to come back to Jodie, that's right, on the Councillor Dick's point. Have you got further information at hand, Jodie, at all?
I have. Yes, it calculates that there would be, this is a BS 4142 rating level, so it takes account of character corrections as well, so it's not an absolute level, so it can weight it worse for tones and characters. And it's 0 dB, so no change from background during daytime hours, and -7 decibels at night time. That's 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. for that noise assessment.
Well, 3 dB is half.
Councillor.
One for Harriet, I think. We talked about the acoustic barriers on the floor. Can you just talk me through what there is, if anything, on the roof? I know we've said that it's less than, but this is an opportunity that the fact what it is isn't the benchmark. You know, it's less than that, then it's okay. This is an opportunity possibly to reduce it more. I know we've said they've got airflow issues and it doesn't need doing because it's below the level, but can you just, is there any soundproofing at all on the roof units?
There is, both in the proposal, there is no sound mitigation proposed for the rooftop.
Maybe that's something we could consider, I don't know, even if only on the flat side.
On the west side, yeah. Well, we discuss that when you get to the point of the discussion. Any further questions at all? Right, sorry, Councillor Abbs.
Yes, I'm sorry. What is the actual decibel level? Did you mention that overnight? I mean, it's 7 decibels lower, but what does that lower it to?
So was that to me?
I guess so. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. So at Old Bath Road, during store trading hours, 37 dB during the day, and 23 dB at night. And at Benedict Court during store trading hours, 41 dB, and at night time, 29 dB. External.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We exhausted the questions to officers, so who is going to open out the debate? Okay, I think Councillor Vickers was first. Councillor Abbs.
I'll leave Councillor Abbs to deal with, translating that technical explanation from our environmental health officer into layman's terms. But just taking on face value what is a very technical subject, as far as the report's concerned, I've heard nothing that would indicate that as a result of this planning application being implemented, things will be much better for the residents. And that's what we all need to believe. And it is very difficult when you've got a very technical subject like this for us members to dare to go beyond what our experts in these matters advise us, because I think we would then open ourselves to appeals between experts in a different forum, which we have no say in. I do think it was really useful to have this planning application and to have a site visit in particular, because we all heard what the operating hour situation is. And whilst it's outside of our control for tonight's decision making, I think it's a benefit to the residents that were there, to the ward member and to all of us to understand. I mean, the rattling of the cages was a bit like a machine gun going off in the middle of the night, frankly. It was really, really loud. And we heard the manager of the site saying he was going to do something about it. It shouldn't be happening anyway. And I hope that also reassures the residents. But frankly, Chairman, members, I've heard nothing tonight that would persuade me not to support the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vickers. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, really, the reason I wanted the dB number is that 0 to 30 is considered very faint in terms of noise. So, at around the 20 mark, it's barely audible. So you're really going to struggle to hear those kind of sounds at any distance. So if that's really what's happening overnight, then there's no argument to kind of ask for more, because it's switched off, so we can't go. The effect of more sound absorption, which we could ask for, I guess, would be to reduce it in the daytime. But the daytime is zero change, according to what I heard, 0 dB change. So other than the issue that Councillor Vickers already addressed, again, I would struggle to find a planning reason on which we could safely reject the application. Therefore, we must go I'm afraid we must go with the officer's recommendation. The numbers back it up. Hopefully that gives some assurance to the residents, and it's certainly what we were told on site. So if that doesn't happen, then planning enforcement should come down on them like a ton of bricks. So.
Okay, I will take Councillor Amathraj first, and then obviously I'm going to look around the table for a formal proposal.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I also want to reflect on this application, whereas a standalone application of this type, you wouldn't normally expect this to come to the committee stage, if not for the perseverance of the residents. So I want to commend them. The residents have shared this one concern, I think, previously as well, but it is more likely the process has stopped them from coming to I'm referring to the previous one, but I will stop that one because there is no point in referring to the previous one. But coming back to this one, I agree with Councillor Vicker's point that just from a technical perspective, this sounds okay, because our own environment officer and planning officers are giving us that assurance that the noise levels, decibel levels will not exceed the current one, and we have the precise numbers here. But I just wanted to emphasize that the point also being made that the site visit and also working with the residents, you can literally see and feel the noise and the disturbance coming from. So I just want to echo the similar points, but also as a board member, as also committee member, which we might have to look after the residents. Can we, and whoever is going to propose that one, if you're looking to approve the officer's recommendation, can we have some conditions in it to monitor, effectively monitor, and that would help us to go for enforcement, because the residents or even board members don't have the means to keep monitoring at different times. It's the council which has the monitoring capabilities. It's anecdotal evidence what residents are saying at 2 o'clock in the night or 1 o'clock. So I would suggest council to proactively set up some monitoring measures in working with applicants or waiters, and give us this data, not to the committee, but to board members and residents, to assure them at regular intervals that they are being kept low. And if there is any enforcement required, then that will be automatic, because that will be a useful mechanism to implement. And also one more I want to understand is that still I believe that there are certain conditions you can put in place to overall consider the noise levels from the operations. But if it cannot be, what I want to emphasize is that this air source heat pumps on the heat pump, sorry, I will conclude, will require maintenance, will require operational activities. It's not to say that it will be there and nothing is needed for the next 30 years. So I want to emphasize that the certain conditions, supplementary conditions, or to add them with them, there can be conditions to say that the operational activity or the maintenance activity of these heat pumps or this mechanism are kept to that operational hours are during the daytime, not during the out of operational hours or out of the trading hours. So they know that if some repair happens, there is a replacement or there is something which remediates that one. So those are the 2 points I want to make for conditions, Chairman.
Okay. Well, I think the points have been taken by members, and I think I'm obviously going to look for a proposal now, and then I would be looking to see whether the proposer wants to include certain points and also whether they're achievable, which is the other point. So I think you were the next on line, Councillor Abson. And
yeah, I'm quite happy to propose that we go forward with officer's recommendation, long as I've got the ensurety that we are referring to the opening times, trading times, as Councillor Gaines mentioned, and therefore we are restricting the operation from 8 till 9 p.m, not 6 till 11, as was mentioned at one point.
Okay, and taking on board comments that Councillor Amathraj has mentioned, do you feel it's appropriate to?
I'd like to hear whether they're practical to implement.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask then an officer whether what could be implemented in relationship to what has come from the ward member.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the monitoring of the noise, I mean, that's something that would happen outside of planning anyway with environmental health. If they had complaints about the noise there, they would go out and they would monitor. And if there was an issue and they were in breach of condition 4, mitigation, you know, and what's been set out in the noise impact assessment, then we could obviously take, but we wouldn't be able to, as a planning condition, set up something for environmental health as it to go out regularly to monitor. It's not something planning would be able to do.
Sorry, Chairman, just to clarify this one. So I understand there will be monitoring, but it will be monitoring as a reactive measure from a complaint made. I'm trying to understand if there will be any proactive monitoring. So even if there is a complaint, that can be backed up by the monitoring at regular intervals, because we are talking about monitoring on a windy day, or it's anecdotal because people complain or people go to the offices and say, I've heard this noise. What is the evidence? They have to record and all this, and they don't have the means. What I can see is the environment officer, if they assure us as part of this application, there will be regular monitoring outside of the planning application. I'm at least happy with that, because if the monitoring is reactive, then it's not serving the full purpose of here or addressing the concerns.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm afraid it would be reactive monitoring, reacting to complaints from residents. That's when environmental health would normally go out and monitor the situation.
That's the answer for official side. Right, were you going to add something?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Hooker.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is an application of which we would give our support. There's no reasons that we shouldn't support this. I think these modifications certainly are going most definitely in the right direction. We've got CO2 reduction, energy improvement, operational hours, I think, of the kit improvement. But I do say, I think this committee at this stage has the opportunity to consider further improving residents' living experience. The fact we've got this level which is acceptable doesn't mean we shouldn't, if possible, consider reducing it further. I did mention this acoustic barrier on the west side, and we've talked about reflective sound off of the building wall on the ground floor equipment. Again, I'd come back to the officers whether there's any reflective sound off of any construction on the roof. If that was so, then I'd like the committee to consider possibly asking for additional acoustic barriers on the west side of the roof and maybe on any walls that are reflective. It's an opportunity to reduce it further. I'm still a bit worried on these issues when we get these technical numbers. They turn them on and the residents say, well, I don't know, this is worse than it was last time. So the more we can do to reduce that, even if it is slightly over the top, would give us just a little bit more safeguard. That's the thought. But otherwise, I'm very happy to second this.
You're happy to second. Well, I'll come back to the proposal before I take Councillor Vickers.
Well, again, it comes down to our planning powers. Do we have the power to implement this type of thing?
Thank you, Councillor Abbs. Yes, we obviously can condition additional acoustic measures, but I would be guided by our environmental health officer as to whether or not that actually, to what they would achieve. Yeah, you're right. There are no acoustic measures as far as I'm aware on the roof. So I would seek advice from Jodie as to whether she feels that would reduce the noise levels.
Could we delegate the powers to officers to investigate possible measures that could be taken both at ground level and on the roof to improve the acoustic output of these devices?
Yes.
I'm happy with that, Chairman. As long as we consider it, we've done all we can to help the residents go away and think, well, everything has been done to try and mitigate the sound to zero.
Yeah. So long as we have.
Is that further comments, Councillor Vickers, or?
It is very pertinent to the issue we're just discussing here. To my mind, and planning officers can confirm this, we are not able to require an applicant to do anything better than meeting our planning policies. So whilst they might unilaterally choose to install even better mitigation measures, we can't require it. Am I not right? But what we can do, which might help, and there again, I would like your advice whether I'm right, It's this definition of what does it mean by first bringing something into use? Because surely you could have a test period, a trial period, where it's not brought fully into use, but you can run it and monitoring during the trial before bringing it fully into use. And that would enable you to have some proactive monitoring. I can remember when I was representing the applicant on some social housing flats in the period when I wasn't a councillor, we had problems with a flat, the very first flat that was occupied in a block of 20. There were complaints immediately that the floor level soundproofing wasn't working. And so the applicant came in and installed monitoring equipment to demonstrate that whether it was or wasn't adequate. And in fact, it wasn't adequate. And so they had to relay the floor. Now, that's a very different sort of environmental health problem, but it was environmental health. And because the building hadn't been fully commissioned and handed over, it was felt that it was within planning powers to do just that. So advice, please, on those two matters.
Thank you, Chair. What we could do, what I recommend then in that case, you could include an additional condition which required an additional monitoring at a set time after first use, say 1 month after first use, to make sure that the sound levels were as was predicted in the original noise report. So you could do that, and then you could word it. You would word it in such a way that they would then, if it wasn't, then they would have to make necessary adjustments to ensure that it was within the correct standards.
Is there any reason we need to wait a month? Because
I've just recommended a month.
Okay,
but
I'm cognizant of, they've got some very large generators on site at the moment, which will be costing them a great deal of money to have there. Once that plant turns on, they'll want to be using it. So we really want to be testing when the day after the plant's turned on and the generators are off, so they can get those off site if everything's okay. If not, they need immediately know that they need to keep the generators there longer and do more. But waiting a month is asking someone to, what was it, 3 huge generators sitting there. That'll be tens of thousands a week. We're asking them to kind of sit there. So I'm just trying to be a friend to business as well. It's planning is great, but we do want a business in town.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make quite some valid points. Yeah, I mean, a month's a long time. And I think perhaps you need to consider. So what was your
Well, I mean, again, I'm happy to delegate to officers, but why not the next day? I mean, I don't understand why we would wait. So,
Chairman, I'd just like to put my not inconsiderable weight behind everything that Councillor Hooker said for the residents, and listening to back and forward and taking, of course, the advice of our outstanding officer here. We should put in an extra condition to check the noise levels, and let's give her another go at how many days she needs.
And we can certainly do it in a lesser period. I mean, that was just I just thought 1 month.
Well,
I think what I was trying to factor in was obviously they need to get the noise experts in place, and when you first turn on the equipment, there might be issues. It might not work properly to begin with. So I was kind of factoring that in.
There's always fine tuning, isn't there?
Fine tuning. So I think a week would be more reasonable.
Well, if I may, let's word in a way that delegates the power. So when you investigate and have the conversations, and if it turns out that they say, well, we'll need a month to do that, then it's a month. But if they say we can do it the next day, great. Just you will have the power to decide that period of time rather than us trying to set it, would be my suggestion. So.
Is that further condition?
No further condition, Chairman. Sorry, I just want to add a perspective that the month, or as Councillor Abb said, it is defined by actual testing, and it's what I think I should be. I'm okay with that one. Is as long as the test condition passed and it's met the objectives of that, it's the time period is not relevant here. It's the test objective, and we have to be able to prove that the noise levels are less or low or meeting whatever. So as long as that is demonstrated by and approved by the environment officer, that should be good.
What I would suggest is it would be taken at the same time periods as were taken in the noise impact assessment, and from the same receptors, so it's comparable.
Sorry, apologies. Sorry, Councillor Gaines. Sorry, we've had a formal proposal from Councillor Abs, seconded by the Vice Chairman, Councillor Hooker. Can we have a show of hands for
Can we just go through the
officers?
conditions first?
Do you want to, oh, you're gonna repeat it again? Okay, fair enough, sorry.
Just want to double check, Chair, that I have all the conditions. We were, as part of the proposal then, it was an amendment to condition 5, so breaking down the trading hours, store opening hours to Mondays to Saturdays, Sundays and bank holidays, so making it very clear that it's now either side of store opening hours. There was also talk about the additional sound mitigation in terms of acoustic barriers for the rooftop plant, and looking into whether or not, so that to be delegated to officers in Connect to investigate. And then the third condition was the one we've just talked about the additional monitoring at a agreed period after the first use.
Okay.
Thank you.
So proposal and seconded to officers' recommendations where the conditions just been highlighted. Can we have a show of hands, members? And for information of anybody who's actually online, it's a unanimous decision. Okay. Thank you very much for attending. And thank you very much for officers. I know it was a single agenda item tonight, and it was expected 2 other applications, but they weren't quite ready. So hopefully they'll be ready next month. But I think the number overall is reducing, isn't it, if I remember correctly?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so it is good news that the number that was well up in the teens is reducing, and we might eventually get down to single figures.
Chairman, is that conditional call-ins where the